Annihilator is easily, one-handedly, the number one IEM in my ranking list right now. Hello, welcome to Audio with Argha, and I am your host Argha. Today we'll be reviewing an IEM that holds the weight of being the number one. Why it holds the weight? Why it is considered the number one IEM in the world? Let's discuss this. In 2021, Elysian Acoustics invented Annihilator, the OG Annihilator, and people got mad about it. They called it the best IEM they have ever heard, best vocals, best treble. They were mad about it. Fast forward to 2023, Elysian Acoustic released another version of the Annihilator 2023, and people were not that crazy. Some had problems, some were overly enthusiastic over it. How this stands in my view, let's discuss. Before starting, I have to tell you that this review will not be done in my usual way that I do review, because it is not an usual set for me. It does something special. It occupies a market that is not achievable by everyone, so I will review it in a certain way that reflects my vision, my thoughts and opinion, without following a structured way that I use in every review. I always told you about how I feel about expensive IEMs. I told you in the video of Nostalgia Camelot. You might have guessed it by now. I don't think they are unnecessary. I think that ultra high-end IEM exist, they should be exist, and they are important for the whole audiophile community. Annihilator sits in a comfortable seat and it gets my recommendation. You have to do one of those two things. Either you have to nail the tonality or you have to suffice it with excellent technicalities. And Annihilator might have done those. Both. This IEM was provided to me by Audio Geeks India. They have a pretty nice community in Facebook. Make sure to join them. Although no one paid or influenced me anything to say good or bad about any products, all thoughts and opinion are mine. I give a link in the description of their Facebook group. Please do visit them. I don't like fitting IEMs into shapes like V shape, U shape, but Annihilator comes in a flavor that will suffice both bass heads and both neutral heads. It's not neutral, but the tonality Annihilator provides is bass boosted, kinda bright. But don't take it as a V-shaped IEM, it is not a V-shaped IEM. The bass on Annihilator is very thunderous. It might not wow you with its bass, like the sub bass is there and it will hit you. It will justify this price point so that you won't crave for more bass unless you are a pure bass head and you like a lot of bass that ruins your music. It has very ample amount of bass. The mid bass is a bit toned down than the sub bass. Mids are there, they are very neutral. Upper mids are sparkly. Treble finds a great refinement factor in the 4 to 6 kHz region as well as the 10 kHz region. And if you know me, you would have known that I have a dip in my HRTF at 10 kHz region, so that suits me a lot. Whereas I have some sensitivity in the 4 to 6K region, and Annihilator magically, I don't know how it manages to do that, tones down that region a bit, which makes the treble of Annihilator extremely perfect and accurate for me. And now coming to the comfort, Annihilator never felt discomforting. Like, it is a chunky IEM, but it is damn light. The wire though, the liquid cable is a bit thick and weighty, which I will talk about later, but Annihilator never felt discomforting or it gave me any irritation in my ear holes. It was like a regular IEM. Now, if I talk about why did I EQ'd it even further, even though Annihilator might be the base for my HRTF, there are certain genres and there are certain songs that were mastered very poorly. Annihilator might get to a point that it sounds peaky or it sounds a bit sibilant. It's not the fault of Annihilator, it's never the fault of Annihilator, it is always the fault of the recording. So to address that recording, I came up with this EQ that served me unlike anything else. Controlled the bass, again it has more bass than I like. It controlled the upper mid range, it controlled the treble a bit, which makes this IEM extremely close to my target. Now I haven't uploaded my target anywhere yet, but time will come, and I think in the next 3 or 4 months you can see my target I will open a squig, so on and so forth. Now coming to a few concerns that people talked about in forums and in the reviews, and I talked with people about Annihilator, and these are the most confusing thing they said to me, so I'm addressing them. The first one is bass punch and slam. The punch and slam are there in Annihilator, but just because the mid bass is a bit toned down than the sub bass, what happens is, suppose there is a tone that starts at 20 Hz and it extends to 250 Hz. At around 200 Hz, it gets a slight cut which makes the bass more controlled. On the contrary, what happens is, you can get the full effect or the reverberation of the bass that you can feel like a wave. This might be a thing that you might find a bit odd. I didn't notice it until I played the Personal by Emotional Oranges. The bass hits there, although they are full, they have that authority, they have that physicality. In the mid bass, they lacked a bit of boominess, if I say so, which might take away from the enjoyment factor of the music. But on the other hand, when you talk about genres that are very lifelike, this takes a great advantage of that. Everything sounds so coherent and everything sounds like perfectly balanced. You decide what you need. If you are a very EDM consumer, if you are a very hip hop consumer, for me they played hip hop as good as in a TOTL. There is no question about it. But if you are a very heavy EDM user or listener and you need that thump, that boominess, you might have to look somewhere else. But if you are a natural listener who likes lot of live recordings and all, Annihilator is just pure perfection. Then comes the lower mid-range. Often people consider the lower mid-range a bit clinical, a bit pushed down. To my ears, and you have noticed in the past, I like a bit of lean sound. It is not as lean as I like. It is full, it has a sense of weight and all. Although it is neutral, it is not warm by any means. It is neutral, and that neutrality might take off some of the musicality that you can expect from an IEM that is luxurious to listen to, from the treble to the bass. So if you are expecting a very lush vocals, they won't be there because they are not tuned for that. Everything sounds so realistic, but nothing sounds like they are covered in, what I can say, a muslin cloth. Everything sounds realistic with this IEM. There is no fakeness that can be achieved. There is no ornamentation in the vocals. If the vocals are good, they are good. If the vocals are bad, they are bad. They are just neutral, and they perfectly showcases the mastering process of that song. On Chris Jones' No Sanctuary here, he sounded full. His voice has a lushness. In Hey Jude by the Beatles, the vocals are very good. But in some songs, like metal songs, where the vocals are the least credited things, or metal songs are the worst recorded songs period in history, the vocals are neglected in those genres, and Annihilator will make sure that you notice that. Now coming to the treble, I can see why it might get a bit sibilant for some. I like bright IEMs, and it just draws a perfect line between being bright and being safe. It just, Lee, the founder of Elysian Acoustics, like painted the treble with a brush, I think, for me personally. Yeah, these are the criticisms that Elysian Acoustics Annihilator 2023 gets. And of course, I haven't listened to the 2019 version because I wasn't into audio that much at that time. But people who have listened to it said that it has a much more richer vocal presentation that people loved. I can't comment on that. Now, if we come to the genre compatibility, I don't think I have encountered any other IEM that does all of the genres well. It can do EDM that well, as I talked. It can do electronic that well. But apart from that, every other genre, it just performs like a rocket. There is no doubt that I haven't heard any other IEM that does all of the things that it does to all the genres. It is an X factor of this IEM. The genre compatibility insane. Now, we are coming to the strongest part of the Annihilator. The technicalities. I don't know how to politely represent it in front of you. That thing is insane. Like, fucked my brain over 200 times. Annihilator is so detailed. It is so detailed. It made the most detailed IEM I heard, Eminentier's Ruby, felt like a toy. I haven't heard any other IEM that does the resolution this good. It is extremely resolving, and the reason why it is more resolving to me might be the 10 kHz upliftment, but it is more than less the most resolving IEM I have ever heard. Now coming to the soundstage though is not very wide. It is 360 degree and it is holographic, but the soundstage might not feel vast. It is a very personal experience. Although the layering is pretty well, but the scope of the stage, the projection of the stage is not very far, which also gives you a benefit while listening to vocals. It gives you an immersion into the vocalist that plays very well with the treble and the mid-range. Now coming to the imaging. Now after listening to this IEM, I can feel that any IEM I heard can do imaging well. After listening to the Annihilator's imaging, I got to know why I didn't felt impressed with all the TOTL IEM's imaging. It's just not at the same level. Annihilator's imaging is laser precise and there is no ifs and buts about it. If something is there, they will be there. After you die, they will still be there. And nothing in the HRTF can mess up with that point, of course to my ears, even if you play 1,000 instruments among it. No matter how busy the track got, no matter how many instruments is playing around that instrument, if something is placed there, they will be right there. It fucked my brain up. How holographic, how accurate can one imaging be? Now coming to a serious aspects, this might have wrapped the overall sound impression of Annihilator, but I want to talk about a few things too. Powering Annihilator is not easy. Of course, you can play it with Apple dongle or anything that has a bit of low power, because it doesn't sound good with low power devices. When you plug this to a desktop DAC amp like I have, like RT5000 or the JDS DAC, Annihilator just blooms into a powerhouse of an IEM, which you can't feel if you plug it to anything low powered. The bass won't feel like that rumbly, the treble refinement was not there. If you are buying Annihilator, be sure to power it well. Now coming to the volume adaptation, Annihilator loves volume. All these things that I have played in this review are examined in very loud volume. If you know me, you would have known that I like to listen to music at mid to low volume, but with Annihilator, I bumped up the volume too loud and it didn't hurt me for like in 2 hours. After 2 hours, it started to get a bit tiring. If you use low volume, like mid-level volume, Annihilator will sound fucking smooth. There will be no peakiness or whatever. Unless you go very loud, Annihilator is just picture perfect. Now, as you guys have known, I love the Annihilator and I can recommend it enough. But it is a review. I am a reviewer and I have to compare it with other IEMs. If you compare it with Eminentier's Ruby, I would have blindly picked Annihilator over Ruby. It is far better detailed than Ruby, far more technically capable than Ruby. The stage in Ruby is pretty big. That's the point that Ruby should get. The vocals on Ruby I didn't like that much. The treble on Ruby I didn't like that much with the stock cable. Cable changing helped Ruby a lot. The sub bass is better on Ruby. The sub bass is a lot better in Ruby. It has that richness. It extracts the deepest part of the sub bass and I can't feel it in Annihilator. So that thing is good. If we compare it with something a bit more neutral like Camelot, the nostalgia, it is a pretty tough choice. On the one hand, you have Camelot that is super smooth. The vocals will melt in your ears. On the other hand, it will wrap you with details and imaging and resolution. They are polar opposite sets. They are not comparable. You need both of them. Camelot is love and Annihilator is passion in one word. This is how I draw my conclusion. Now to wrap things up. If you have money, spend it blindly. If you love tech, if you have similarity with my HRTF, Annihilator is great. It can do bass well, it can do mids well, it can do treble like fantastic. Thanks for watching this video. I know it's a pretty long video and it is not something that I do on a daily basis. Annihilator just screw up a few things in my brain, stopped me thinking about any other IEM. And yeah, subscribe to my channel and like this video if you like it.